In today's video, we're going to be reviewing two fragrances from Fort Manle. This will finish off reviewing the newest additions to the collection. Some fragrances were discontinued and 3 more were added. And so we're going to be talking about Late Harvest and All the Queen's Men. The first one we're going to talk about is Late Harvest. This is a tobacco-based fragrance. On the back of the card here it says, "Autumn holds on sometimes, the year gives us clues as we go, hard work in the fields, prepping for winter can break a man, life by moon and rain and the evening pipe bring it all back to mind." And I think this was inspired by Fort's grandfather, who had like a cherry tobacco in kind of a leather pouch. And so what I get from this one is a lovely opening. It's got a bit of a freshness, a little bit of a brightness to the top note. But then immediately you get this kind of rich, almost damp tobacco. It's like kind of a little bit damp tobacco leaf, and it smells like proper tobacco, like real tobacco. It doesn't smell like a pack of cigarettes. It doesn't smell I can't explain it other than it's more realistic tobacco. So you get this beautiful tobacco opening. I do get a sweetness from it, but it's not too sweet. It's not overly sweet. Some tobacco fragrances can be a little bit heavy on the sweet side. I'm thinking of things like by Kilian's Back to Black, which I think has the honey notes and is actually quite on the sweet side. This one does have an element of sweetness, but not too much. There is a slight cherry nuance to this that you can pick up within the first kind of 20 minutes, half an hour. You get a little bit of a cherry vibe. Like I say, this comes across to my nose as like a slightly wet tobacco leaf, hints of cherry. There's almost like a spiced kind of nuance that feels kind of warm and inviting. It's kind of got a richness to it, and that sweetness just helps take the edge off maybe the tobacco being a little bit bitter if it wasn't there. As it starts to dry down, I get a little bit more of a vanillic touch to this fragrance. And in fact, in the mid, after a few hours, I kind of almost get slightly kind of coumarin-like vibes, which is some people might perceive as coconutty hay kind of vibe. There's this kind of, like I say, coumarin kind of note. I've no idea whether coumarin is in there or not, but it just gives a little bit of a vibe, even if it's not, of that kind of thing where people might think of coconut or hay, or maybe just the way that the vanilla mixes with the tobacco, even providing a little bit of this coumarin-like sweetness. But you get a little bit of that coming through as it dries down. That vanilla, like I say, becomes a little bit more noticeable as it dries down. This one seemed to sit a little bit closer to my skin. I sprayed it quite, decently around my neck and on my hand. It felt more intimate, more private, kind of personal bubble, but very nice. I quite enjoyed wearing this one. I thought the sweetness was just enough. If it had been maybe a little bit more sweet, I don't think I would have enjoyed it quite as much. I think there's a nice balance of that kind of tobacco note with the sweetness, where it's just balanced quite nicely for my personal taste. Obviously skin chemistry dependent and personal taste preferences. You might even find this one a little bit too sweet depending on your own taste. But for me, I thought it was quite nice. Like I said, that vanilla comes through a little bit more as it dries down. And towards the end of the dry down, there's a rosewood note listed, and I do feel that it does become maybe a little bit more woody as it dries down. As the base notes come in more properly, you get a little bit of that. But I would say the woody kind of vibe that it has is very smooth. Very, very kind of smooth, deep, woody tone. That it's not got that kind of rough grain, so to speak, that you get from certain kinds of cedarwood. This is very, very smooth. That's how it feels, but you do get kind of a slightly more rich, kind of warm woodiness to the dry down. Still that vanilla kind of tone goes through into the base. Rose is listed as a note. To be honest, not sure if I could pick that out or not. I didn't get huge rosy vibes, maybe a little bit pinch of it. It's not a dominant note. It's not something that you might not even realize it's there if you didn't read it on the note list, so to speak. Kind of one of those notes. There's a little bit in there, but not enough to probably, for most people, to be able to pull it out at least strongly. It's a subtle nuance. probably helps with the overall kind of balance of the fragrance, but you don't, or at least I didn't kind of perceive it directly, so to speak. It didn't influence the way that I smelled it, so to speak. But I didn't get any kind of massive swings or changes with this. It just, like I say, gets a little bit more vanillic as it dries down, and the tobacco maybe kind of slightly disappears into that sweetness. As it goes into the dry down, you perceive a little bit more of the sweetness and a little bit less of the tobacco. I would say this one is completely unisex. Definitely there is no gender to this. A woman would smell great, a man would smell great. There's no problem. Ideally, I would pin this as an autumn winter fragrance. I probably could wear it in spring. I wouldn't wear it in the summer personally. I'd say if you're looking for a kind of a slightly sweetened cherry tobacco, like I say, then this one you might want to check a sample of. I think a lot of people will probably like it if you're into kind of tobacco fragrances. In terms of performance for this one, a little bit on the shorter side for Fort Manle. I got around about 4 hours before I would kind of want to reapply. So I'd say 4 to 5 hours longevity. That's on my personal skin chemistry. Some people might get a little bit less, some people might get a little bit more or a lot more. Longevity is kind of odd in perfume. The differences on people's skins can be quite huge. On me, 4 to 5 hours, I would probably want to reapply. For you, you might get a little bit more, like I say. Overall, I liked this one. I thought it smelled lovely. I thought it was kind of cozy, comforting, warm. Like I say, not too sweet, but just enough sweetness. And yeah, if you like cherry tobacco, that one is an option for you to check out. The next one we're going to talk about in this video is All the Queen's Men, which is the other newest from the line. And what I get from this one, first thing that I get from this is this kind of sticky, dried fruit note. You get kind of sticky, dried raisins and sultanas and currants, that kind of thing. And mixed in a little bit of this kind of honey. So it's kind of honey draped dried fruits, and it does come across a little bit seasonal. I can imagine Christmas time with this. I think my brain going towards like Christmas pudding kind of territory, although this is not gourmand, but I'm kind of reminded of more of a festive season, so I pin this more as a winter fragrance for that reason. But it's sticky, it's sweet, it's dried fruits, and it's balanced with this honey accord. The spice kind of element to this does seem more on the subtle side. I wouldn't describe this as a spicy fragrance. There is a rum note listed in this, and I don't perceive anything that I would say was alcoholic or boozy, but there is a syrupy-like sweetness to it. Like I say, the way the honey blends with the dried fruits, that for some may give an illusion of a slight kind of booziness. I don't really smell it as booze. It doesn't smell, like I say, alcoholic. To my nose, I don't get kind of that vibe, but I do get kind of this kind of syrupy-like quality. After about 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes on skin, the honey note starts to get a little bit darker, because in the opening it's seems a little bit more kind of bright and kind of clear, and as it starts to dry down it gets a little bit kind of darker, maybe even a pinch animalic, and it starts to get a little bit more woody in the base, kind of a little bit more deeper notes coming through. This one, like the tobacco fragrance, had something in it that reminded me a little bit of coumarin again, so a little bit of a coconutty vibe was coming through on my skin. Again, I have no idea if coumarin was used in either of these, possibly not, but at least on my skin I'm getting or perceiving something that reminds me of a little bit, like I say, like coconutty a little bit. Could be the way, like I say, vanilla is mixing with other notes, but yeah, I get a little bit of a coumarin-like vibe as it dries down that comes off a little bit coconutty in certain places. After about an hour, I start to get that vibe from this one. In the dry down, I get kind of an ambery, woody kind of fragrance, I would say. It's very smooth. I don't get many, so to speak, notes from it. I get kind of a, like I say, a rounded, soft, slightly sweetened amber accord, blended evenly with some kind of softer kind of feeling woods, and that's kind of that's the progression. I get dried fruits, I get honey, the honey gets a little bit darker, and then I get a little bit of the woods coming through in the dry down, going into a little bit more of a vanilla kind of almost slightly coumarin kind of vibe with those kind of woody elements in the base. This one was the shortest lasting on my skin from the newest collection. On me, I would say 3 to 4 hours, and it was pretty much disappearing on my skin. Again, I just want to point out skin chemistry, some people will get longer, but on me, 3 to 4 hours I'd want to reapply this one. So this was not the strongest from the line of Fort Manle, but you know, 3 to 4 hours on my skin, you might get 5 to 6, 7, 8, maybe even. These kind of stewed, kind of dried fruits, a little bit kind of honeyed, sweetened with it. You might want to check out a sample. Definitely sample it first and see how it plays on your skin, whether you're happy with the longevity and the overall fragrance. I wouldn't recommend blind buying, so to speak. You need to like test them out with a sample. Personally, for my own taste, speaking as like Peter, so to speak, rather than a reviewer, I would prefer late harvest on my skin. I enjoyed the progression of that and the comforting feeling that it had. All the Queen's Men didn't strike me as much, but like I say, if you're into the kind of dried fruit note with the honey in the woods, you might like that one. Maybe not my personal taste, this particular one. In terms of season, I would say that All the Queen's Men would be ideal for autumn specifically and into the winter months. Again, completely unisex. All of the new 3 fragrances were completely unisex, definitely, and very easy to wear. There's nothing challenging about any of them. All 3 are easy to wear. That finishes up the full reviews of the latest 3 from Fort Manle. If you've got a favourite of the new releases, please let me know. If you tried them, let people know in the comments. And I will see you soon on Monday with another video. We're probably going to do some first impressions. I've got some samples of some new stuff, so we'll be checking out some first impressions soon on Monday. Take care, have a good weekend, enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Be blessed, everyone. Bye.
One time he disappeared for 2 or 3 days. When he came back, they asked him where he'd been, and he said, "Oh, just sailing."